Good morning to all the students. So in today's session we are going to discuss one of the important concept in the object oriented programming systems, that is called as binding, right? So we'll see what binding is and what are the various types of bindings we have, and we'll see what are the in and out of these types of binding, such as compile time binding and runtime binding. We'll see everything with one programming example, right? So this is what I have planned for today's session. So let us discuss what do you mean by binding. So can anybody tell me what do you understand by the term binding?
Linking together.
Yes, binding is something like we can say it as linking, or we can say it as mapping, or we can say it as matching. So we have different terms to tell about what this binding is, right? So why do we use this term binding in the programming language? Do you have any idea? Yeah, binding is linking, okay, that is good, but why do we use this term inside these programming languages? Any idea? Okay, so let us have some basic idea on what this binding is, right? So if I have a function f1 and I have some statements, assume that this is my main function, like this. So what is this statement called as? What is this statement? Anybody please respond.
Function, sir.
Yeah, it is function call or function declaration or function definition. What is it? Yeah, please respond. Is it a function call or function declaration or a function definition? Please respond.
Function
Definition, sir.
This is not function definition. Somebody is saying something. Is it function declaration? So this is called as function call. How do you call a function? You can call a function by its name, right? So this main is a function, and within this main function I am just calling this f1 by its name, so, right? So f1 is the name of the function. Is it clear? So when we have the function call, what happens here is the control jumps from this function call to the function definition. You might have written the function definition somewhere else. Function definition is the set of statements which actually perform the task that we are intended for, right? So for example, f1 is a function that is used to add two integer numbers. So you will write the set of statements that corresponds to the addition of two integers inside this body of this function f1, right? So from here to here we call this as a function definition. So function definition is nothing but a combination of header and body. The first line, which tells the compiler about the name of the function, the return type of the function, and the number of arguments of the function, is called as the header, and the actual statements that are present inside this opening curly brace and the closed curly brace, they form the body, right? So combinedly, the header plus body, we call it as a function definition. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So you should have you should know the difference between the function call and the function definition. So function definition is the actual set of statements that perform the task which is intended for. But function call is the statement which is written in another function, and that statement is used to invoke the function definition. So why do we invoke? Means in order to execute the function we should invoke this function. So we call the term as invoking a function. When we invoke the function, the actual functionality will be executed, right? So to invoke the function we should call the function. So this is how these function call and function definition are related. So in the main function I am calling a function f1, that is called as the function call statement. And when the function call statement is encountered by the compiler what it will do is it will first make the control to jump from this called function to the calling function, from the calling function to the called function. So from here to here the control will jump, and later it will execute the body of the function. So the entire f1 function will be executed. Once the execution of the function is completed, then the control will again jump from this function definition to the called function, right? So this is the scenario what happens when a function call is encountered by the compiler. So before this, and we have so many tasks to be performed before jumping and after coming back again also, but we are not bothered about it. But the point here you have to remember is when you want to execute a particular function, you have to invoke the function. In order to invoke the function you have to call the function. So once you call the function, the control will jump from the calling function to the called function, and once the execution of the entire function is completed, then the control will again return back from the calling function to the called function. So this is the scenario what happens when a function call is being done. So the point here why we have discussed all these function calls and function definitions is you should remember that binding means we are saying that we can call it as linking, right? Or we can call it as mapping, or we can call it as matching. Like that there are different terms, but majorly we will be using the term matching, right? So we have a function call here and we have a function definition here. So when the function call is encountered, we are invoking the function definition. So we are matching this function call with the function definition. So that is called as binding. So any function that you take in the programming languages like C, C++, Java, when you call a function, that function call will be invoking a function definition, the corresponding function definition, right? So the linking up of the function call with the function definition is called as binding, right? Or else we can also say that the matching of the function call statement with the function definition is called as the binding. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So let us take one more example to clear the concept of this binding. So I am writing a small code snippet so that you can understand it correctly. See here. How many functions are there in my particular example that I have taken? 3 functions. The first one is the main function, the second one is the f1 with 1 parameter, and the third one is again the function f1 with 2 parameters x and y. So in the main function, as you know that the compiler always starts its execution from the main function only. So the main function gets started and the first call is f1 with 1 parameter called x. So you tell me what actual function definition will be invoked. We know that the function call should be matched with the corresponding function definition. That is called as binding. So binding takes place. So tell me what f1 is, it the second definition or the third definition that matches with this f1 with int x?
Second definition, sir.
So the second definition is going to match, right? Similarly, when the compiler comes across this statement f1 of int x comma int y, what is the function that is going to be invoked?
Third one, sir.
So here it is second and here it will be third one, right? How the compiler is coming to know that at statement 1 it should invoke the function definition at 2, and at statement 10 it is going to invoke the function f1 which is defined at 3. How it is going to know? By means of the signature or by means of the header part, right? So the compiler will look at this f1 and it will look at the number of compilers, and it will also consider the return type also, right? We should not neglect the return type also. But so the head part, the header is nothing but a combination of the return type, the function name and the parameter list. So here it will consider the function name and the parameter list. Since the f1 is matching with this function name, and since the number of parameters, only one parameter is matching with this function definition, this corresponding function definition will be invoked and executed. Similarly, at the statement 10 it will match, it will look for the match, right? It will look for the corresponding function definition which matches the function name and which matches the type and the number of parameters, right? How many parameters are there? There are 2 parameters, therefore the number of parameters is 2. Okay, this function definition is having 2 parameters, and similarly the type of the 2 parameters are int followed by int. Here also the definition of f1 is having int followed by int. So in such case this particular function will be invoked. So it all depends on the head part or the header of the function. It is responsible for the mapping purpose, right? So this is called how is it clear that how this function is going to match this particular function definition only, and this statement or this function call is going to match this function definition only? Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So this is called as binding. We can simply call it as matching up of the function call with the function definition is called as binding. So how many functions you have inside the program? All the functions should be mapped, right? All the function calls should be mapped with the function definition. Let us forget about how it is going to map and when it is going to map. That we are going to discuss in the next slides. But at this particular point of time, you just remember that binding is a concept where the where you have to, you means the programmer. Let us forget who is going to map it, right? So it is nothing but the matching of the function call with the function definitions. So as I told that any number of functions you take and any number of function calls you make, everything should be mapped. That is called as binding. And one question that I would like to ask you is whether this binding is exclusively related to functions or it is related to the variables also. Do you understand my question? Are you there? Are you able to listen to my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please respond. My question is whether the binding part is exclusively related to functions or the binding is also applicable to the variables also.
Variables also, sir.
Right. Super. Right. So the binding, we will be discussing the concept of binding with respect to functions only. Right. But the concept of binding is also applicable for the variables also. Right. For variables, we have the identifiers and the corresponding addresses will be there. So when you have to match the identifier with the addresses of the variables, that is also called as the binding. So remember that one important point just now we have discussed is binding is a concept which is related to both the variables and the functions. When we want to discuss about the binding related to variables, you will simply say that the matching up of the identifiers with the addresses of the variables is called as the binding, and when you want to discuss the binding with respect to the functions, the matching up of the function calls with the function definitions is called as the binding. So one simple point you keep it in mind that binding is applicable to both variables and functions. That's it, nothing more than. So let us go into the topic of our discussion. So this is a overall idea of what binding is. So we'll discuss and we'll see whether any points we are missing out there. So coming to the introduction part of binding, the binding means the process of converting the identifiers to the addresses. As I have told with respect to the variables that you need to convert the identifiers or you need to map the identifiers with the addresses. That is called as binding. And this part also we have discussed that for each variable and function that you define in the program, the binding has to be performed. So important point, this one, binding is applicable to both the variables and functions. And for functions, it is nothing but the matching the function call with the right function definition is called as, let us forget this, it is done by the compiler or whatever it may be. Right. So the matching up of the function call with the right function definition is called as binding. Right. And this is important. Right. One of the important theoretical question you can get from this particular binding concept is compare and contrast the two types of bindings. So we have two types of bindings where we can do the binding operation either at the compile time or at the runtime. So if you perform the binding, that means the linking up of the function call with the right function definition at the compile time itself, we call it as the compile time binding or static binding. The other name for the compile time binding is also called as static binding. Right. Similarly, if the binding up of the function call with the function definition is done at the runtime, we call such type of binding as the runtime binding, or it is also called as dynamic binding. Is it clear? How many types of bindings are there?
Two
Yes,
types,
sir.
sir.
Two types. What are they?
Compile time, static binding and dynamic binding, sir.
Super. Static binding and dynamic binding, we can also call them as compile time and runtime correspondingly.
Yes, sir.
So we know that these are the two types of bindings we have, and in the earlier classes also we have discussed that the compile time binding can be accomplished by what concepts? What concept supports the compile time binding? Right. So you might have forgotten that. So the compile time binding is supported by function overloading, operator overloading, function overriding. All these concepts support the compile time binding. And the concepts that support the runtime binding is the virtual functions. Right. It is very, very important. You should keep it in mind that we have two types of binding. One is the compile time binding, which is supported by the function overloading, operator overloading, and function overriding concepts, whereas the runtime binding is supported by the virtual functions concept. Right. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the binding, we know what binding is, and we know the classification of binding. We have two types of bindings, and we know the names of those bindings also. So here we come across the new terminology called as early binding and late binding. Right. So early binding is nothing but the static binding. What is the other name for static binding?
Compile time binding.
It is compile time binding. So the late binding is also called as dynamic binding. What is the other name for dynamic binding?
Runtime binding.
Runtime binding. So these are the various terms. So somebody may tell you that compare and contrast the early binding with the late binding, or somebody will say that static binding versus dynamic binding. Somebody will say that compile time binding versus runtime binding. Everything is same, right? Everything is same. But this is the new term we have come across in this particular concept, that early binding and late binding. So let us proceed with this particular terms only, early binding and late binding. Right. As I told that the early binding is implemented by using the function overloading and operator overloading, and similarly we have this function overriding also. Function overriding is also supporting the early binding concept, whereas for the late binding you will be implementing this concept with the virtual functions. We have seen the concept of virtual functions in the last unit, right? Can anybody tell me what do you mean by the virtual function? Anyhow, we are going to discuss it in the next slides also, but earlier also we have discussed this concept of virtual functions. Anybody please just tell me what this virtual function is.
The function is defined twice and
Which declares in the base class, sir.
Okay. Super, right. So the virtual functions are defined. Is it declared or defined in the base class?
defined, sir.
No. It's a definition only, right? So you have the function definition inside the base class, and the same function will have the different definition outside the base class. That means in the derived classes. So which function has to be invoked, that depends on the concept of the late binding, that we will discuss in the next slides. But so whatever you have defined, that the virtual functions are the functions which are defined inside the base classes, and they are intended for the modification in the derived class, right? So whatever modifications you want to perform for these virtual functions that are already defined inside the base class can be done by making use of the virtual functions, right? So coming to the concept of early binding, what are the other names for early binding?
Compile time and static binding, sir.
Super. Compile time binding and static binding, right? So coming to the introduction part related to this early binding, this is also called as compile time binding or compile time polymorphism, and it is also known as the static binding or the compile time binding. Here what happens is the compiler or the linker directly associates an address to the function call at the time of compilation. So compiler will take the responsibility of mapping the addresses of the functions with the function call with the function definition, right? So since the tell me whether the compilation is being done earlier or the runtime is being done earlier.
Compile, sir.
So compilation is the first step that we perform before going for the running, right? So you compile the program and then you run the program. So the compilation is the first step and running the program is the second step. So by this you can also understand why this particular binding has been named as the early binding, right? Since at the time of compilation itself you are going to bind the function call with the function definition, this is a category of early binding, right? So as I told that the function overloading and the operator overloading as well as the function overriding is used to support this early binding concept, right? What do you mean by function overloading? What do you mean by function overloading?
Same function name is used with parameter list types.
Super, right? So we are going to overload the function. Overloading the function means you use the same name. But you are going to, the functions are going to differ in the parameter list. So if you have the same function, if you have more number of functions with the same name but with the different parameter list, that concept we are calling it as the function overloading, and this function overloading helps in implementing the early binding concept, right? Similarly, what do you mean by function overriding?
The signature remains the same.
So we have the same function name and we have the same return type and same parameter list also, right? So in the base class we have a function called f1 with two parameters, let us say int comma int, and in the derived class also we have the same function name f1 with two parameters int comma int. So this type of concepts is called as the function overriding, right? So we have one definition inside the base class with function name and two parameters, we have one definition, and in the derived class also we are using the same function name with the same parameters, same number of parameters and the type of parameters, but we are going to change the body of the function, right? That means we are overriding the definition that is given inside the base class in the derived class. So this is called as the function overriding. So the function overriding in which the base and derived classes have the functions with the same name, parameters and return type. It is also an example of early binding, right? And remember that this early binding is the default binding process in C++. So if you don't specify any binding concept, then by default the C++ compiler will treat the binding under the category of early binding. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
So let us see an example program on early binding. So we have this, we know all these things. What is the name of the class I have defined here? Base. How many functions does it have?
One function.
Right. So I have one function display which is described under the public scope, and it is going to just print the statement in base class, right? So here is the end of the class definition, class base definition. And what is that I am doing here? Can anybody tell me what is that I am doing here?
Creating a subclass.
Yeah, we are creating a subclass. You have to explain it in a full length, right? We are creating a subclass named derived, and the derived is being derived from the base class in the public scope, right? What is the name of the function we have here?
Display.
Right. Is it the same name as that of the function which is defined inside the base class?
Yes, sir.
Does it have the same return type? And does it have the same parameter list? Yes, everything is matching, right? So if both the signatures are matching, the signature of the display function inside the base class is matching with the signature of the display function inside the derived class. So what is this concept called as? Is it overloading or overriding?
Overriding, sir.
Overriding.
Overriding, right? Overriding means same signature you should have. That means it should have the same function name, return type, as well as the parameter list, but the definition which the function is going to have will be altered, right? It will have different body with respect to the base class and with respect to the derived class. So this is called the overriding concept. So the simple statement that I am going to display, that I am going to print in the display function of the derived class is in derived class, right? So up to here we know what we are doing, and we know that this is a overriding concept, but the main part comes here, right? So let us go with the main function. What is this I am doing here? What is that I am doing in the first statement here in the main? Please respond. What is that I am doing in the statement 1? Abhiram, Vaishnavi.
Dynamically allocating.
Yeah, super, right? Continue. We are dynamically allocating a derived class object, right? But before that, what I am doing? Base space star base pointer. What is that particular statement is doing here? What is this base? What is this base?
Class.
It is the name of the base class, right? And what is this star base pointer?
Pointer, sir.
So I am creating a base pointer called base underscore pointer for the class base, but after creating the base pointer, I am initializing it with the derived class object, which is dynamically created by using the new, right? So the base class pointer is storing the derived class object. Am I right or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what does this particular statement is doing? I am making use of the base pointer, and I am displaying the, I am activating, or I am invoking the function display. Now tell me which display function is invoked. Is it the derived function display function, derived class display function, or the base class display function? Which function is going to be invoked?
Derived class, sir.
Right, it is derived class. This is what everybody will think. So the reason why you may be thinking that it is going to invoke the derived class display function is, even though you are creating the base pointer, a pointer to the base class, but you are storing the derived class object inside the base class pointer. So you may be thinking that this is going to invoke the display function of the derived class, but here it is not going to invoke the display function of the derived class. It is going to invoke the display function of the base class. So the output for this statement will be in base class. The reason is it is going to implement the early binding. That means it is going to implement the compile time binding. Therefore the mapping up of the pointers and or the mapping up of the function calls with the function definitions will be done at the compile time. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So during the compile time, the compiler will come to know that you are creating a base pointer. You are creating a base pointer, and this base pointer is linked with this base class. right? So at the compile time itself, the compiler will getting a clear idea that this base pointer is going to be a pointer to this base class. So it will keep it in mind that whatever you write after this one, that means you are going to store the derived class object inside the base pointer. That is not considered. Why? Because the mapping of this base pointer with the base class is done at the compile time. So here what the compiler will do is it will simply take the base class pointer and it is going to invoke the display function of the base class. So this is how the early binding takes place. Is it clear up to this point?
Sure.
Right. So what is happening
sir.
here is when you create a base pointer of the base class, it is going to map this base pointer with the base class at the compile time itself. But this particular new is equal to new derived is going to be postponed to the runtime. So it is not going to bother about this new derived, right? So the base pointer arrow display will be invoking the base class display function. The reason is the base pointer is pointed to the base class. This is what the compiler know, right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So here the new, tell me what happens for this new. Why do we use new operator? Why do we use new operator? Is it for static memory allocation or dynamic memory allocation?
Dynamic memory.
Right. So by this also you can understand that base star base pointer is mapped during the compile time, but during the runtime you are trying to use the dynamic memory allocation. So this is postponed to runtime. Am I right or not? This is done at compile time
Yes, sir.
and this is done at runtime. So here after compilation is done, what happens here is the base pointer is mapped to the base class and the compiler will still be in a illusion that the base pointer is still pointing to the base class only. So this display function is to be taken from the base class. That is what it is going to do, right? So this is called as the early binding or the compile time binding. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we can, by this example, we can know that the overriding concept is supporting the concept of early binding. Am I right or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. Let us take one more example of this early binding. So the name of the class that I have created here is
Animals, sir.
animals. So what is the function that is present inside this animals class?
Word sound.
Sound, right? And it is going to print that this is a parent class. That's it. And what is that I am doing here? I am creating a derived class dogs, which inherits the animals class publicly, and it is also having the sound function, right? So the the base class is having the sound function, and the derived class is also having the sound function with the same signatures. So it is also the concept of overriding. Am I right or not?
Yes.
So
Yes,
in this sound function that is defined inside this dogs class, we have a single statement dogs bark. And let us come to the main part. Right. What is this statement doing? What is the first statement in the main doing?
A pointer variable to animal class.
Right. We are creating a pointer A to the base class animals. And what is this one? Second statement.
Object creation to the
Super.
subclass.
We are creating an object D to the derived class dog. Right. And what is this statement? This is very important. What is this statement doing?
The address of the object is stored in the pointer.
So the address of the derived class object is stored in the base class pointer. That is what you have to define. So the address of the derived class D object is stored inside the base class pointer A, right? And what is this one? A arrow sound. That means I am going to invoke the function sound with the parameter or with the pointer A of the base class, right? So after this, you may be thinking that since the derived class object address is stored inside A or inside the base class pointer, so this particular statement is going to invoke the sound function of the dogs class, of the derived class, but this is not going to happen. The reason is, even though you are mapping here, even though you are storing the address of the derived class object inside the base class pointer, but earlier during the compile time, what happened here is you are creating the base class pointer A for the base class animals, right? So this is going to be taken, that means the A, the base class pointer, is going to be treated as the base class pointer only. So this is not going to be taken into consideration. So it will be invoking the sound function of the base class, and it will print the statement as this is parent class. So this all happens because of the early binding. So the binding, the mapping up of the function definition with the function call, or the addresses, the identifiers, the mapping up of the identifiers with the addresses will be taken at the time of compilation itself. That's the reason why we call this as the compile time binding or early binding. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you may be getting a doubt that, sir, if everything is being invoked from the base class, what is the method that we need to implement in order to invoke the derived class functions, right? So that is done by making use of virtual functions. Is it clear up to this point? We'll see. Is it clear up to this early binding? We have seen what early binding is, what are the things we need to have in the early binding. So how even it, we have seen two examples with the overriding concept only, but you can change, you can make use of the function overloading and operator overloading also, right? It is up to you. But I have shown you the concept of overriding, which makes us to implement the concept of early binding, right? Now coming to the concept of late binding. So what are the other names for the late binding? We have
Dynamic binding.
runtime binding and dynamic binding. Why we call it as late binding means because the binding or the mapping up of the function calls with the function definitions is postponed, or it is done at the runtime. Since the runtime is the next step to the compilation process, we are making the binding in the latter stage. Therefore, we call it as the late binding. So when we postpone the mapping up of the function calls with the function definitions till the runtime, we call it as the late binding, right? So let us see the introduction concepts related to this late binding. So this is a runtime polymorphism. This is also called as runtime polymorphism, and it is known as the dynamic binding or runtime binding. So in this type of binding, the compiler adds code that identifies the object type at runtime, then matches the call with the right function definitions, right? So here the compiler, what it is going to do is it is going to add some code such that the object type will be mapped at the runtime. So the actual matching up of the function call with the function definition is postponed up to runtime. So this is exclusively done by adding some code. What code we are going to add? All these things we will see, right? Simple code, a simple term will convert the early binding into the late binding. It is nothing but virtual, right? How we are going to do, we'll see it, right? So the compiler adds some code such that it identifies the object at a runtime and makes it possible to call the function or to match the function call with the function definition at the runtime, right? And this is how we are going to achieve the late binding. by making use of virtual functions concept, we are going to implement the late binding. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So we'll again, I think we have gone through this virtual functions and pure virtual functions in the last unit. But now as the concept is again repeating, we just go through these virtual functions where we'll come across all the terms we have studied in the virtual functions, and of course you may be encountering with some new terms also, right? So let us see the background of this one. So a C++ virtual function is nothing but a member function in the base class that you redefine in the derived class. That is what you have defined earlier, right? When I asked you the question of what virtual function is, you told that you have a definition inside the base class and you are expected to redefine that inside a derived class. That is called the virtual function. So how do you declare a virtual function? Means it is a normal function, it is a normal member function where you precede it with the keyword called virtual. So by adding a simple keyword virtual before the function declaration, we are making the function as the virtual function, right? When you make a virtual function, when you make a function virtual, then you are expecting that you have to write some other code for this particular same function in the derived class. So a virtual is a keyword preceding the normal declaration of the function. This also I have discussed, and remember this is very important. When we make a function virtual, the main purpose of making the member function virtual is you are making the compiler to perform the dynamic linking or late binding on the function, right? So once you make the function as virtual function, you just use a keyword called virtual in front of the function declaration. So when the compiler comes across the term virtual before the function definition, so it will keep it in mind that oh, this particular function has to be mapped at the runtime. So this is the instruction, this is the code you are giving to the compiler, or a simple code that you are adding to the compiler, and you are instructing the compiler that the actual function call of this virtual function should be mapped to the function definition at the time of runtime, right? So this is how the late binding is implemented. Very simple concept. You just have to give some information to the compiler saying that this function call should be mapped at the time of runtime. This is done by making use of a virtual keyword. That is concept we are calling it as virtual functions, right? So if somebody asks you what is the main purpose of the virtual function, you can blindly say that virtual functions is a concept which is implemented or which is used to implement the late binding. By giving the virtual keyword, you tell the compiler that you have to implement it as the late binding concept. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. And sometimes, and another important point you have to remember for these virtual functions is sometimes you can create a single pointer, and by using the single pointer you can access the base classes as well as the derived classes also, right? So the concept here is you have only one base class pointer. Let us take it as BP as the base class pointer, and by making use of this base class pointer you can access the base class objects and you can access all the derived class objects, right? So when a situation arises where you have to access the base class objects and derived class objects by using a single pointer, so in such case also you can make use of this virtual keyword, right? So what happens if you don't give the virtual inside the base class pointer or inside the base class? Anybody tell me? So I have just normal member functions that are defined inside the base class as well as the derived class, but I don't give any virtual keyword. So what happens? Since virtual keyword is not given, the compiler will treat that particular function call should be mapped to the corresponding function definition at the compile time itself. So there you are going to implement the compile time binding. But if you want to postpone the binding process till the runtime, you have to tell the compiler that with a virtual keyword, right? Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So when the function is made virtual, C++ determines which function is to be invoked at the runtime based on the type of object pointed to by the base class pointer, right? So here you have the base class pointer where you can store the addresses of the base class objects as well as the addresses of the derived class objects. So by making use of this base class pointer, you can invoke the functions inside the base class or inside the derived class also. So whether you are invoking the base class object function or the derived class object function, that depends on whether you have defined the function as the normal member function or virtual functions. If it is a normal member function, the base class pointer is going to invoke the base class functions only. But if you are making the member functions as virtual, the base class pointer is made to invoke the function definitions of the derived class. If it is clear, we can move to the next slide. Right. Only simple point. One point is base class pointer can be used to store the base class objects as well as the derived class objects. Second point is, if you are using a normal member function, then the base class pointer makes or invokes the function definition of the base class. But if you are making the member functions as virtual, the base class pointer can be used to invoke the function definitions of the derived class, right? So coming to some of the rules of the virtual functions, these rules we have already discussed in the earlier slides also, earlier classes. So virtual functions must be member functions of some class. Yes, we know that's one. And virtual functions cannot be static members, and they are accessed through object pointers, right? You should have the concept of pointers. So you will be creating the pointers for the base class, and by making use of those pointers, you are going to invoke the base class functions or the derived class functions. So the pointers concept is important to implement this virtual functions concept. So there can be the friend of another class. The virtual functions can also be the friend of another class. We know the concept of friend functions, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, and this is very important. So a virtual function must be defined in the base class even though it is not used, right? So for example, I have a base class like this and I have a virtual function. Do I need to give definition for this virtual function or not?
Yes, sir.
I have a derived class from this base class and I have the same function I have defined here, right? If I am using a base class pointer and I am storing the address of the derived class, what function is going to be invoked? Is it the derived class function or the base class function? Is it the derived class function that is going to be invoked or the base class function that is going to be invoked when you make use of the virtual function concept?
Derived, sir.
Derived, right? So when you make a function virtual inside the base class, you are never going to invoke it. You are not going to invoke this function, right? Why? Because every time you are asking the compiler to delay the process of binding, right? So after this object of the derived class address is stored inside the base class pointer, you are always going to invoke the function definition defined inside the derived class only. Never ever you are going to invoke this base class function, right? Even then it is mandatory that you should give definition for this virtual function inside the base class. So the definition of the function is mandatory inside the base class even though you are not going to invoke it at any time. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And one more important point is the prototypes of the virtual function of the base class and all the derived classes must be identical. Is it correct or not? What do you mean by prototype?
Yes.
What is the other name for function prototype?
Signature, sir.
signature or function declaration also. We can call it as function declaration or function signature or function prototype. Everything is similar, right? So the prototypes of the virtual function of the base class and all the derived class must be identical. So whatever signature we have for the function inside the base class, the same signature should be followed in all the derived classes also. This is very important for the virtual function. You are not going to change the signature of the function or the prototype of the function. If you change the signature, what is that concept called as?
Function overloading, sir.
It is called as function overloading. Super, right? So function overloading, we are going to use it for the compile time binding. So if all the base classes and all the derived classes maintain the same signature, and you have to maintain the same signature, that is mandatory. So in the virtual functions concept, the derived classes and the base class should maintain the same signature for the virtual functions, right? And one of the important point is we cannot have the virtual constructor, but we can have the virtual destructor. So the virtual destructor concept we are going to discuss as the last topic of our discussion, right? After this late binding concept, we are going to discuss the concept of virtual destructors, right? So remember that this point is very important. You never have the concept of virtual constructors, but you have the virtual destructors, right? So let us take an example here. Right. So what is the name of the class I have defined here?
Base, sir.
Base. What is the name of the function?
Display, sir.
What is the statement that I have written here?
In base class.
In base class. Simple statement, right? So when I invoke this display function, it is going to simply print the statement in base class. But remember that I have used the keyword called virtual here, right? So when the compiler sees this particular statement, this keyword virtual, what does it come to know? What is the programmer trying to say about this virtual function to the compiler? What is the message he is conveying to the compiler? Yeah, please tell me. Repeat it again.
The mapping or allocation should be at runtime.
Please don't mix the terms mapping and allocation. Allocation is a term which is used to for the memory allocation. Here you have to use the concept of mapping only, right? Whatever you told is perfect, but the terminology has some important meaning, right? So when we make, or when the programmer gives the virtual keyword in front of the function definition, then we are trying to say the compiler that the matching or the mapping of the function call with the function definition should be postponed till the runtime, right? So in simple terms, we are simply saying the compiler that you please implement the concept of late binding. That's it. So when we make a virtual function, then you tell the compiler, you are telling the compiler that you are going to implement the late binding concept. That's it, right? So coming to next one, we have the derived class, which is publicly derived from the base, and we have this public again we have this function display, and in this function display I am writing it as, I am just changing the body of the function, right? Cout in derived class. Now coming to this statement. So the same statements we are using in the earlier slide also, right? The same program I have copied, but only simple point I have done here is I just make the display function virtual inside the base class. So I am creating a base pointer for the base class, and I am allocating the derived class object by dynamically by making use of new operator. Now I have the second statement as base pointer arrow display. So when this is done, the compiler will go and check whether the display function should be mapped with the function definition of the base class or the derived class. Since the display function of the base class is given as the virtual then it is going to postpone the mapping till the derived class, till the runtime. So during runtime this will be invoked, right? This will be evaluated, and here the base class pointer is pointing to a derived class object. Therefore this statement, the second statement, will be invoking the display function of the derived class. Why? Because you are storing the derived class object inside the base point. Is it clear up to this point? Very simple thing. The difference between this compile time and late binding is you just
Yes, sir.
use the keyword virtual, that's it. Is it clear? Right. So again we will take the same example which we have discussed earlier for the compile time binding or the early binding. So I am making use of the class animals. Under the public section I am defining a function called sound, and I am making it as the virtual function. So that sound function is having a single statement. This is a parent class. Okay, now this particular from this here onwards I am going to derive a dogs class from the animals class publicly, and I am defining the same function void sound with the definition which is overwritten, where I have written it as dogs bark, right? And see here, coming to the main function, we have a pointer a for the animals class, that is the base class, and we have created the object for the derived class, and in this statement I am assigning the address of the object to the base class pointer, and this point is very important. A arrow sound. So I am using a base class pointer to invoke the sound function. Now the compiler will come into action and it will check whether this sound function should be mapped with the definition of the base class or the definition of the dogs class. Since you are using the concept of virtual function, the compiler will be delaying the process of binding until the runtime. So during the runtime I came to know that the base class pointer is storing the address of the derived class object. Therefore this will invoke the sound function of the derived class object only, right? So of the derived class dogs. So the output that we will get here is dogs bark. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So the simple point, the difference between this early binding and late binding is you can implement the late binding by making use of the virtual keyword. By making the functions as virtual, you are telling the compiler that the binding process should be delayed until the runtime. So you are telling the compiler that you are going to implement the late binding concept, right? So if it is clear, we just stop it here and then continue the remaining topics in the next class. Right.
Okay, sir.
So in today's class we have discussed what binding is, the mapping or the matching of the identifiers with the addresses, or the matching of the function calls with the function definitions is called as the binding. Second point we have discussed is the types of binding. We have two types of bindings, the early binding and the late binding. Third point we have discussed is the early binding can be implemented using the function overloading, function overriding and operator overloading, but the only concept that supports the late binding is virtual functions. And then we have gone through the important concepts related to the early binding. So the binding that takes place at the compile time, we call it as the compile time binding or static binding or late binding. And we have seen two examples how this late binding can be implemented using overriding concept, function overriding. And then we have jumped to the concept of late binding. Late binding is the concept where you will be mapping the function call with the function definitions at the time of runtime. This can be implemented by using the virtual functions. You just make the member functions of the virtual, member functions of the class virtual by adding a keyword virtual before the function declaration or function definition. When you make the functions, member functions as virtual, you are just telling the compiler that you are going to implement the late binding. That means you are giving information to the compiler saying that you please delay the process of binding the function call with the function definition until runtime. So we have seen two examples. So this is I think you have understood the concepts well. Is it clear? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you one and all. This is end of today's session. We'll meet again tomorrow with the same concepts of binding, and then we'll move to the virtual destructors concept. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.